When his wife asked him to help her sister overcome her fear of men, he thought it was just an act of kindness, until the entire family turned against him, accusing him of betrayal. James had been married to his wife for exactly 3 months when she dropped a bombshell on him that he never saw coming. It was a regular Tuesday evening, nothing special about it. They were sitting at their small dining table, eating homemade pasta, talking about their day like any normal couple would. His wife was telling him about a frustrating meeting at work, and he was half listening while scrolling through his phone. Then she said something that made him put his phone down immediately. "I need to talk to you about my sister," she said, her voice suddenly serious. James looked up concerned. He knew his sister-in-law was going through some tough times, but he wasn't sure what was coming next. "Is everything okay? Is she all right?" he asked, genuinely worried. His wife took a deep breath and started explaining. Her younger sister, who was 23 years old, was struggling with something that might sound unusual to most people. She had severe social anxiety, but specifically when it came to interacting with men, not just romantic situations, but any situation involving males. Casual conversations at work, talking to a waiter at a restaurant, even asking a male colleague for help with a project. All of these things terrified her. James listened carefully as his wife explained the background. Her sister had grown up in a very sheltered environment. Their parents had sent her to an all-girls school from elementary through high school. Then she went to a women's college for her degree. For most of her life, she'd been surrounded almost exclusively by women. She had no brothers. Their father had passed away when she was young, and even their extended family was mostly female cousins and aunts. Now she was working at a tech company where about 80% of the employees were men. And she was absolutely miserable. She'd come home crying after work multiple times, saying she couldn't handle it anymore. She would freeze up during meetings when male colleagues asked her questions. She ate lunch alone in her car because the cafeteria felt too overwhelming. She was brilliant at her job, really talented with computers and programming, but her anxiety was holding her back from everything. James felt genuinely sad hearing this. "That sounds really tough," he said. "Have you thought about getting her to see a therapist? There are people who specialize in exactly this kind of thing." His wife nodded. "Yes, we've talked about that. She's actually on a waiting list for a therapist, but it's going to be at least 2 months before she can get an appointment. And honestly, I'm worried she might quit her job before then. She loves what she does, but she's at her breaking point." James could see the worry in his wife's eyes. She was really concerned about her sister, and he wanted to help somehow. But then came the part that made his stomach drop. "So I've been thinking," his wife continued, choosing her words carefully. "What if you could help her? Like, just spend some time with her. Have normal conversations, maybe grab coffee or go somewhere public together. Nothing weird, just help her get comfortable being around a guy in a relaxed setting." James just stared at her. Did he hear that correctly? Was his wife really asking him to hang out with her younger sister to help her get over her fear of men? He felt his face getting hot. This was the strangest request anyone had ever made of him. "Wait, what? You want me to—" "What exactly are you asking?" he stammered. His wife quickly explained her thinking. She said that her sister needed exposure to men in safe, non-threatening situations. Someone patient who wouldn't judge her or make her feel pressured. Someone her sister could trust because he was family. His wife emphasized the word family several times, as if trying to make it clear this wasn't anything romantic or weird. James's mind was racing. On one hand, he understood the logic. If someone is afraid of dogs, you gradually expose them to friendly dogs in controlled situations. Same principle, right? But this felt different. This felt like it could go wrong in so many ways. What would people think if they saw him hanging out with his young sister-in-law? What if she got the wrong idea? What if his wife got jealous later? "I don't know about this," James said slowly. "I mean, I want to help, but this seems like something a professional should handle. What if I say the wrong thing and make her anxiety worse? What if people misunderstand what's going on?" His wife had clearly thought about these concerns. She explained that she'd already talked to her sister about this idea, and her sister had agreed to try it even though she was nervous about it too. She suggested that the first few meetings would include her being there as well, so it wouldn't be just the two of them. Everything would be in public places during daytime. Nothing private, nothing that could be misunderstood. "And you're really okay with this?" James asked. "You're not going to get weird about it later?" His wife took his hand across the table. "Look, I know it sounds strange. Trust me, I get it. But this is my little sister. She's struggling so much, and I feel helpless watching her suffer. You're one of the kindest, most patient people I know. I genuinely think you could help her, even if it's just a little bit. And I promise I trust you completely. I wouldn't suggest this if I didn't. James sat back in his chair, feeling overwhelmed. This was not how he expected his Tuesday evening to go. He'd been thinking about what to watch on TV later, and now he was being asked to become some kind of social anxiety coach for his sister-in-law. The whole thing felt surreal. Can I think about it? He asked. This is a lot to process, his wife nodded. Of course. Take all the time you need. I know it's a big ask. I just wanted to put it out there. They finished dinner in relative silence, both lost in their own thoughts. James helped clean up the dishes, his mind spinning with questions and concerns. That night he barely slept. He kept thinking about all the ways this could go wrong. What if his friends saw him and started asking questions? What if his sister-in-law developed feelings for him? What if his wife changed her mind and accused him of something inappropriate? What if it didn't help at all and made things worse? But then he thought about the other side. What if it actually helped? What if a few casual coffee meetings and simple conversations could make a real difference in someone's life? His sister-in-law was family now. Wasn't it his responsibility to help family when they needed it? He thought about how scared she must feel every day at work, how isolating it must be to live with that kind of anxiety. He also thought about his wife and how much she loved her sister. He could see the desperation in her eyes when she was talking about it. She wasn't asking him to do anything inappropriate. She was asking him to be kind and patient with someone who needed help. When he thought about it that way, it seemed less strange and more like a reasonable request from one family member to another. By the time the sun came up, James was exhausted, but had made a decision. He would try it, but only with very clear rules and boundaries. He would help his sister-in-law, but they'd do it the right way, with total transparency and careful planning. He just hoped he wasn't making a huge mistake. The next morning at breakfast, James told his wife he would help, but they needed to establish some serious ground rules first. She looked relieved and immediately agreed. They spent the next hour writing down exactly how this arrangement would work, like they were drafting some kind of official contract. First rule: every single meeting would be in a public place. Coffee shops, bookstores, parks, museums, anywhere with lots of people around. No meeting at either of their homes, no private locations, period. Second rule: his wife would always know exactly when and where they were meeting. He would text her when he arrived and when he left. Third rule: initially his wife would attend the first few meetings to make sure everyone was comfortable. Fourth rule: if anyone felt uncomfortable at any point, they could end the arrangement immediately, no questions asked. James felt better having these boundaries written down. It made the whole thing feel less weird and more structured, almost professional. His wife called her sister that evening and explained that James had agreed to help. She put the phone on speaker so James could hear her sister's reaction. "Are you sure about this?" her sister asked quietly. "I don't want to make things awkward or cause any problems." James spoke up. "Hey, it's okay. We're family now, and family helps each other. We're going to take it slow and keep everything comfortable for everyone. No pressure, all right?" There was a pause on the other end. "Okay, thank you. Really, thank you so much." They scheduled the first meeting for that Saturday at a busy coffee shop downtown. James was nervous all week. He kept wondering what they would even talk about. How do you have a conversation with someone who's terrified of having conversations with you? He decided to do some research and read articles about social anxiety. He learned that people with this condition aren't being rude when they don't make eye contact or give short answers. They're literally fighting a panic response in their brains. Saturday came, and James arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early. His wife was already there, having saved a table near the window. She gave him an encouraging smile as he sat down. Then they waited and waited. Her sister was supposed to be there at 2 o'clock. At 2:15, she still hadn't shown up. "Maybe she's not coming," James said. "That's okay, this is a lot for her." But then the door opened, and a young woman rushed in, looking flustered and apologetic. She was shorter than James expected, wearing a big hoodie despite the warm weather, and she had her hair pulled back so tight it looked painful. She spotted them and walked over, her eyes fixed on the floor. "I'm so sorry I'm late," she mumbled. I sat in my car for 10 minutes trying to make myself come inside. James's wife stood up and gave her sister a hug. It's okay, you made it. That's what matters. Come on, sit down. Do you want something to drink? Her sister shook her head and sat down, choosing the chair that faced away from most of the coffee shop. She still wasn't making eye contact with James. The first few minutes were painfully awkward. James tried asking simple questions about her week, but she gave one-word answers. Good. Fine. Okay. She was gripping her coffee cup so tight her knuckles were white. His wife tried to help by bringing up topics she knew her sister liked, but nothing seemed to work. James was starting to think this was a terrible idea. Then he remembered something from one of the articles he'd read. People with social anxiety often feel more comfortable talking about subjects they're passionate about rather than small talk. So, your sister told me you're really good with computers, James said. I've been having this annoying problem with my laptop. It keeps freezing when I have too many tabs open. Any idea why that might be? For the first time, her sister looked up, though not quite at his face. How many tabs are you talking about? I don't know, maybe 30 or 40, she almost smiled. That's probably your RAM getting maxed out. How much memory does your laptop have? And just like that, they were having a conversation. It wasn't smooth or natural, but it was something. When talking about computers and programming, her sister became a different person. She knew her stuff and started explaining things with more confidence. She still wasn't making eye contact, but her voice got stronger, and her answers got longer. They talked for about an hour, mostly about technology, with his wife occasionally joining in. When it was time to leave, her sister actually thanked James directly, though she said it to his shoulder rather than his face. Same time next week? James asked. Maybe we can grab coffee and walk around that bookstore next door? She nodded and quickly left. His wife grabbed James's hand. That went better than I expected. Did you see how she opened up when you asked about computers? James smiled. Yeah, I did some reading this week. Figured it might help to talk about something she's comfortable with. Over the next 2 weeks, they met 3 more times. Each meeting was slightly less awkward than the last one. His wife came to the first 2, but by the 3rd meeting, her sister said she was okay with just James. His wife still knew exactly where they were and when, but she didn't attend in person. The 3rd solo meeting was at a bookstore. Her sister showed up only 5 minutes late this time, and she was wearing regular clothes instead of the oversized hoodie. She even made brief eye contact twice during their conversation. They walked around the bookstore, and she showed him her favorite section, sci-fi and fantasy novels. She got genuinely excited talking about a book series she loved, barely stuttering at all. This is actually helping, she told him as they left. I had a meeting at work this week, and I actually spoke up when my boss asked a question. I still got nervous, but I did it. James felt good about that. Maybe this weird arrangement was actually working. But in the back of his mind, he kept wondering how long they should keep doing this and when it might become a problem. He pushed those thoughts away and focused on the positive. His sister-in-law was making progress, and that's what mattered. That evening, he told his wife about the progress. She was thrilled and hugged him tight. Thank you for doing this. I know it's not normal, but you're really helping her. James hoped she was right. He hoped this was helping and not setting them all up for disaster. Only time would tell. The family meeting didn't magically solve everything, but it helped more than James expected. His own parents believed them immediately and apologized for doubting. His mother-in-law took longer to come around, but seeing her younger daughter speak up so confidently made her pause. She remembered how anxious and scared her daughter had been just months ago, barely leaving her room, crying every day after work. I still think you should have involved professionals from the start, his mother-in-law said, her voice softer than before. But I can see you were trying to help, and I can see it worked. It wasn't a full endorsement, but it was something. James's father-in-law, who'd been quiet the whole meeting, finally spoke up. I wish I could have helped her myself, but I didn't know how. Thank you for stepping up when I couldn't. That hit James hard. He hadn't thought about it that way. How his father-in-law might have felt guilty for not knowing how to help his own daughter overcome her fear of men. After the meeting, the gossip didn't stop immediately, but the people who mattered knew the truth. Some relatives still whispered and gave James strange looks at family gatherings, but his wife would shut them down quickly. If you have something to say, say it to our faces. Otherwise, mind your own business. The bigger question remained, what would happen with his sister-in-law now? They all agreed that the arrangement had served its purpose but needed to end. James's wife had done extensive research and found an excellent therapist who specialized in social anxiety. The therapist had an opening, and his sister-in-law started weekly sessions. They also discovered a local support group for young adults dealing with social anxiety. The group met twice a month at a community center, led by a trained counselor. It was perfect. His sister-in-law would be able to interact with both men and women who understood exactly what she was going through. James and his sister-in-law had one final official meeting at their usual coffee shop. It felt bittersweet. They'd spent so much time together over the past few months, and despite all the drama it had caused, James was proud of what they'd accomplished. "I want you to know something," his sister-in-law said, stirring her coffee. "I know there were moments when I maybe seemed like I had a crush on you or something. I want to apologize for that. You're married to my sister and you were just being kind to me. I think I just got confused because you were the first guy who was ever patient and nice to me without expecting anything in return." James appreciated her honesty. "I understand. And for what it's worth, I'm really proud of how far you've come. You did all the hard work. I just showed up and talked," she smiled. "You did more than that. You treated me like a normal person instead of someone broken who needed to be fixed. That made all the difference." They talked for another hour about her goals, her therapy sessions, and her excitement about the support group. She'd already attended one meeting and had exchanged numbers with 2 other people there. She was also planning to join a recreational sports league, something she never would have considered before. When they said goodbye, she gave him a quick, appropriate hug. "Thank you, brother-in-law, for everything." 3 months passed and life slowly returned to normal. The family drama faded into the background, though some relatives still brought it up occasionally at gatherings. James learned to just smile and change the subject. His sister-in-law was absolutely thriving. Her therapy sessions were going well, and she'd become a regular at the support group. She'd made several friends there and had even started dating someone she met through a hiking club she'd joined. She was still a bit shy, still got nervous sometimes, but she was managing her anxiety instead of letting it control her life. Her career had taken off too. The promotion she'd gotten had led to even more opportunities. She was recently featured in her company's newsletter for her leadership on a major project. Her team apparently loved working with her. One Sunday, the whole family got together for a barbecue at James's mother-in-law's house. It was the first big family gathering since the drama had unfolded. James was nervous about it, but his wife squeezed his hand reassuringly as they walked in. To his surprise, Christina, the cousin who'd started the whole mess, approached him immediately. "Hey, James, can I talk to you for a second?" They stepped aside, and Christina looked genuinely apologetic. "I'm really sorry about what happened. I jumped to conclusions and made things worse by talking before getting the facts. I should have just asked you what was going on instead of assuming the worst." "It's okay," James said, meaning it. "I get how it looked from the outside." The barbecue went well. His sister-in-law showed up with her new boyfriend, a shy guy who worked in graphic design. Watching her introduce him to everyone, comfortable and smiling, James felt a wave of emotion. She'd come so far. Later, as people were eating, his mother-in-law stood up with her glass. "I want to say something," she announced. The yard got quiet. "I want to apologize to James and my daughter. I didn't understand what you were trying to do, and I said some harsh things. But looking at my youngest daughter now, seeing her so happy and confident, I realize you did something really special. You helped her when she needed it most, even though it was hard and people judged you for it. That takes courage, and I'm grateful." James felt his wife's hand in his. His sister-in-law was crying happy tears. It wasn't a perfect movie ending, but it was real and it was good. That night, lying in bed, James and his wife talked about everything that had happened. "Would you do it again?" she asked. "If you could go back, knowing how it all turned out." James thought about it. "Honestly, I don't know. We helped your sister, which was worth it, but we also caused a lot of drama and stress. If I had to do it again, I'd probably insist on involving a therapist from day one and maybe joining her for therapy sessions instead of private meetings. That would have been less weird and maybe even more effective." His wife nodded. "I learned that good intentions aren't always enough. Sometimes the way you help someone matters as much as helping them at all. They fell asleep holding hands, their relationship stronger for having survived the test. And down the road, his sister-in-law was probably sleeping soundly too. No longer afraid of half the world's population, finally comfortable in her own skin. Sometimes helping people is messy and complicated. Sometimes people misunderstand your motives. Sometimes even doing the right thing can look wrong from the outside. But when you see someone transform, James and his wife decided they would ease his sister-in-law into the transition rather than ending things abruptly. They planned to suggest she join a social anxiety support group while gradually spacing out their meetings. But life has a way of making decisions for you, and sometimes those decisions come in the worst possible way. It was a Saturday afternoon, and James had met his sister-in-law at their favorite bookstore. She'd been excited all week because she'd gotten a promotion at work, a real leadership position where she'd be managing a small team. She wanted to celebrate, and James figured one more meeting to congratulate her wouldn't hurt. They spent an hour browsing through books, with her chattering happily about her new responsibilities. She was glowing with confidence, practically a different person from the anxious girl he'd first met months ago. They were laughing about a funny incident at her office when they decided to leave. As they walked out of the bookstore, still deep in conversation, James heard someone call out his name. He turned and felt his stomach drop. Standing there with shopping bags and a shocked expression was Christina, his wife's cousin. She was staring at James and his sister-in-law with wide eyes and an open mouth. "Christina. Hey, we were just—" James started to explain, but Christina cut him off. "I should go. Good to see you, James." Her tone was ice cold and she practically ran to her car. His sister-in-law looked confused. "Who was that?" "Your cousin Christina. She doesn't know about our arrangement." James felt panic rising in his chest. "I need to call your sister right now." He immediately called his wife and explained what had just happened. She sighed heavily on the other end. "Okay, don't worry. I'll call Christina and explain everything. It'll be fine," but it wasn't fine. Not even close. By the time James got home 2 hours later, his phone had 3 missed calls from his mother-in-law and several text messages from his wife saying, "Call me ASAP." When he walked through the door, his wife was sitting on the couch, her eyes red from crying. "What happened?" James asked, though he had a sinking feeling he knew. "Christina called my mother before I could reach her. She told her she saw you and my sister together, looking really comfortable and happy. My mother called everyone, my aunts, my uncles, even some family friends. The story is spreading like wildfire, and it's getting twisted with every person it passes through." James felt his anger rising. "What do you mean, twisted?" "We weren't doing anything wrong." "I know that. And you know that, but Christina apparently told people that you two were holding hands and laughing together like a couple. My aunt told someone you were spotted at a romantic bookstore date. By the time the story got to my mother's friend, someone claimed they saw you two kissing. That's insane. None of that happened." "We were just talking." His wife nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I tried to explain to everyone, but they're not listening. My mother is furious. She's saying you've been having an affair with my sister this whole time, and I've been too naive to see it. Some relatives are saying I put you in a bad situation, and I'm to blame. Others are saying my sister is a homewrecker who's trying to steal you away from me." James felt sick. This was exactly the kind of disaster he'd worried about from the beginning. He pulled his wife into a hug. "I'm so sorry. This is all my fault. I should have been more careful." She shook her head against his chest. "It's not your fault. We were trying to help, but maybe everyone was right. Maybe this was a bad idea from the start." The next morning was even worse. His sister-in-law called, absolutely distraught. Her mother had confronted her the night before, accusing her of trying to ruin her sister's marriage. She was sobbing on the phone, saying she was sorry, that she never meant to cause any problems, that maybe she should just quit her job and move to another city. "Please don't do that," James told her. "You've worked so hard and come so far. This isn't your fault. People just misunderstood." But the damage was done. Over the next few days, the gossip continued to spread through the family. James's own parents called, having heard rumors from someone at church. His friends were asking questions. Someone at his wife's workplace had heard the story and was spreading it around her office. The whole thing had become a nightmare. His wife was devastated and angry, though not at James. She was furious with her family for believing gossip over her own word. She'd tried repeatedly to explain the truth, but people seemed more interested in the scandalous story than the boring reality. "We need to do something," James said. "We can't just let people believe these lies." His wife wiped her eyes. "Like what?" "Have a press conference to announce to everyone that my husband wasn't having an affair with my sister?" James thought for a moment. "Actually, kind of, yeah. Let's invite both sets of parents over. And your sister, too. We'll sit everyone down and explain everything from the beginning. Why we did it, what the boundaries were, what the results were. We'll make them understand." His wife looked skeptical but agreed. They needed to try something. They called both sets of parents and insisted on a family meeting that Sunday. James's parents agreed immediately, being more confused than angry. His mother-in-law agreed reluctantly, her voice dripping with judgment over the phone. Sunday came and James's living room had never felt so tense. Both sets of parents sat stiffly on the couches. His sister-in-law arrived last, looking terrified. James and his wife stood in front of everyone like they were on trial. James's wife spoke first, explaining her sister's social anxiety, how severe it had become, how it was affecting her life and career. She explained how they'd decided to help by gradually exposing her to comfortable social situations with a trusted male family member. She detailed all the boundaries they'd set, the transparency they'd maintained, and the genuine progress that had been made. Then James spoke, describing the meetings, the topics they'd discussed, the public places they'd gone to. He showed them the text messages to his wife before and after every meeting, proving there was nothing to hide. Finally, his sister-in-law spoke up, her voice shaking but determined. "I know this looks weird from the outside, but James and my sister saved my life. 3 months ago, I was ready to quit my dream job because I couldn't handle talking to my male colleagues. I had panic attacks in the bathroom at work. I ate lunch alone in my car every single day. Now I'm managing a team. I'm making friends. I went on an actual date last week with a guy from a coffee shop. None of that would have happened without their help." The room was silent. James's mother was the first to speak. "Why didn't you just tell everyone what was happening from the beginning?" James's wife sighed. "Because we knew people would react exactly like this. We knew it would sound weird and people would judge. We thought if we kept it quiet and it worked, it wouldn't matter." His mother-in-law still looked skeptical but less hostile. "It still seems inappropriate." "Maybe it was," James admitted. "Maybe we should have done things differently. But our intentions were good and nothing inappropriate happened. Ever. You can choose to believe us or not, but that's the truth." A month into the arrangement, things were going surprisingly well. James and his sister-in-law had settled into a routine of meeting twice a week, usually on Wednesday evenings and Saturday afternoons. They'd visited art galleries, gone to a science museum, attended a free lecture at the local library about artificial intelligence, and spent countless hours at various coffee shops just talking. The transformation in his sister-in-law was remarkable. She was making eye contact regularly now, even holding it for several seconds at a time. She'd started dressing differently too, less hidden behind baggy clothes and more like someone her age. She smiled more, laughed at jokes, and even made jokes of her own. Best of all, she was thriving at work. She'd told James excitedly that she'd volunteered to present her project to the entire team, something she never would have dreamed of doing before. "They actually clapped when I finished," she said, beaming. "One of my male colleagues even asked if I wanted to grab lunch, and I said yes. I had lunch with a coworker." James was genuinely proud of her progress. It felt good to know he'd helped someone overcome something that had been holding them back. His wife was over the moon, constantly thanking him and telling him what a good person he was. But not everything was sunshine and rainbows. Problems were starting to creep in from unexpected directions. The first issue came from James's own friends. One of his buddies, Trevor, had spotted him at a coffee shop with his sister-in-law. Later that week, Trevor pulled James aside at their weekly basketball game. "Dude, I saw you with some young girl at Starbucks on Wednesday. What's that about?" James explained the whole situation, feeling awkward even as he said it out loud. Trevor listened, then shook his head. "Man, I'm not trying to be a jerk, but that sounds like a disaster waiting to happen. What if she develops feelings for you? What if someone sees you and tells your wife? What if your wife gets jealous?" "My wife knows everything. She's the one who asked me to do this," James protested. Yeah, but wives say a lot of things they don't really mean. Trust me, I've been married longer than you. This could blow up in your face. James tried to brush it off, but Trevor's words stuck with him. He started noticing how other people looked at them when they were out together. An older woman at the museum had given them a disapproving stare. A waiter at a restaurant had assumed they were on a date. Each time James found himself explaining the situation, which only made it seem weirder. The second problem came from his wife's family. His mother-in-law somehow found out about the arrangement and was absolutely furious. She called his wife, screaming about how inappropriate it was, how people would talk, how it made the family look bad. His wife tried to explain, but her mother wouldn't listen. What will people think? His mother-in-law kept saying. Your husband's spending time alone with your unmarried sister? It's not proper. His wife was upset after that phone call. She wasn't mad at James, but she was stressed about the family drama. Maybe we should stop, she said. I don't want this to cause problems, but her sister was making such good progress. They decided to continue for a few more weeks, but the joy had been taken out of it. Now James felt like he was doing something wrong, even though he knew he wasn't. The third and biggest problem happened during their 8th meeting. They'd gone to a bookstore, one of their usual spots. His sister-in-law was in great spirits, showing him her favorite authors and talking animatedly about a new fantasy series she was reading. She was so different from the scared girl he'd met a month ago. She was confident, happy, comfortable. As they were leaving, she was telling him a funny story about something that happened at work. She was laughing, using her hands to gesture, completely at ease. Then she said something that made his heart sink. You know, you're basically my best friend now. Is that weird to say? She said it innocently, just stating a fact. But the way she looked at him when she said it made James uncomfortable. There was something in her eyes, a warmth that seemed like it might be crossing a line from gratitude into something else. Well, I'm your brother-in-law, James said carefully, emphasizing the family relationship. I'm glad we get along, but remember, this is all to help you get comfortable with guys in general, you know? The goal is for you to make friends at work and eventually date people your own age. She looked down, embarrassed. Right, yeah, of course. I know that. But the moment had created an awkwardness that hadn't been there before. They said goodbye quickly, and James left feeling uneasy. When he got home, he immediately told his wife what had happened. I think maybe your sister is starting to see me as more than just a brother-in-law, he said carefully. Nothing happened and I shut it down right away, but I'm worried we might be creating a different problem while trying to solve the first one. His wife looked concerned. Did she say something inappropriate? No, nothing like that. It was more just a feeling. The way she looked at me. I don't know, maybe I'm reading too much into it. They agreed to be more careful going forward. His wife said she'd talk to her sister about maintaining appropriate boundaries and remembering the purpose of these meetings. But James couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking a tightrope, and one wrong step could send everything crashing down. A week later, during their 9th meeting, things got even more complicated. They were at their usual coffee shop when his sister-in-law reached across the table and briefly put her hand on his. I just want to say thank you, she said, for everything, for being patient with me, for not judging me, for helping me become a better version of myself. It was a sweet sentiment, and James knew it came from genuine gratitude. But the physical contact, even though it was brief and innocent, crossed a line he hadn't expected. He gently pulled his hand back. You did all the hard work yourself, he said, keeping his voice friendly but firm. I just showed up. You're the one who faced your fears and pushed through the anxiety. Be proud of yourself. She smiled but looked a bit hurt. The rest of the meeting was fine, but something had shifted. That evening, James had a long, serious conversation with his wife. They both agreed that the arrangement had served its purpose. His sister-in-law had made tremendous progress, but continuing might create new problems. Maybe it's time to suggest she see that therapist, James said, and maybe join some kind of social group where she can meet more people. She's ready for that now, his wife agreed. They'd helped her get over the initial hurdle, but now she needed to spread her wings and interact with a wider circle of people. The question was, how would her sister react when they told her? Would she understand? Or would she feel abandoned just when she was starting to feel confident?